IDP Hour. I'm your host, Jordan Rains. Our co host, Jared Gray, will not be with us today. He had a personal family issue he had to get to, so thoughts and prayers are with him. But I'm joined today with the Dynasty Chef, my dude Steve. What's up, Steve?
How you doing today, Jordan?
Dude, I'm a little bit tired, but I'm excited to be pumping out some content for our loyal, maybe few, but loyal followers out there. We're going to talk some IDP rankings for week 5. Before we do that, though, I want to give a shout out, say we're happy to be part of the Full Time Fantasy Podcast Network. You guys can check out some of the other really awesome shows on there, the Fantasy 40, the Fantasy Football Takeaway, um, the FF Hustle is on there. We're on there, the IDP Hour. Some good guys, some good content every week. If you're looking for something new, a different perspective, maybe your league mates aren't getting, we're definitely a great place to start. So just wanted to give that a little shout out real quick. And then I guess we'll just hop into the rankings every week. I don't go super, super, super deep. I just do the top 24 guys that I think are going to perform that week, guys that I think everyone should be starting with a level of confidence. I do that for the defensive lineman position, the linebacker position, and the defensive backs. I don't, go any more specific than that as far as player designation, um, for reasons I'll say for
hmm
a different show. So we'll just go ahead and start. I will read off my top 12 defensive linemen for week 5 here. Number 1 I have this week is Joey Bosa. Number 2 this week I have Sam Hubbard. Number 3 this week I have J.J. Watt. 4 Daniil Hunter. 5 T.J. Watt. 6 Shaq Barrett. Oh, this is a fun streak right here. 7 Miles Garrett. 8 Grady Jarrett. A lot of Erets right there. 9 we have Chandler Jones. 10 Khalil Mack. 11 Cameron Jordan. And 12 Whitney Merciless. Um,
Wow. Bosa all the way at number one, huh?
yeah, I just, I don't think he's dipped out of my top 5 all season, maybe not even my top 3. He's just such a, there were some concerns coming into the season with the injury, oh, his foot, he said something in a press conference in the offseason about, I still feel the pain in my foot, and people got a little scared. There's this perception that the Bosa brothers are injured all the time, made of glass, etc. Be that
hmm
as it may, there's still Joey is one of the best, defensive linemen in the league, hands down, bar none. Um, and for IDP, the thing you like about him is the way that he doesn't give up on plays, which ends up in him having a decent tackle floor. So that's something you can count on every week. He hasn't had a huge, huge season yet. The sacks haven't really fallen his way per se. He's only got 2, but um, I think you can look for that to change this week and him to.
Sure hope so. I've been counting on him, and he hasn't been performing too well.
Yeah, well, he gets the Broncos this week, which is fun.
hmm
Divisional game. The Broncos haven't really been a great team so far this year. Their offensive line does have some holes in it. Joe Flacco, he's looks okay, I guess, this season, but I could see Bosa putting him on the dirt a couple of times this week, pretty easily. Um, I know that Melvin Ingram had a hamstring thing pop up, so maybe he
hmm
won't have his buddy on the line with him, but I still think he's going to produce this week. He's got a cush matchup, and I know he wants to get those sacks, so I think he's in a good spot. Somebody that I'll probably get, I put these rankings out yesterday on Twitter. I actually didn't get near as much hell as I thought I would, but I have Sam Hubbard up at number 2 this week, and I just want to give people a little confidence in playing him. I know he hasn't had a sack since week 1, but he has played a couple of tougher offensive lines. I had somebody send me a message yesterday saying, he was got a pretty bad grade against in PFF this last week. He didn't have any pressures, but I mean, he's playing the Steelers' offensive line, which is one of the most
hmm
veteran and upper echelon offensive lines in the league. So I mean, it's really not all that surprising to me that he didn't have a huge game. He still managed to rack off 5 or 6 tackles, which is exactly why he's an elite defensive lineman option. I mean, he's averaging, I think, 7 tackles a week right now, 6 or 7 tackles a week at defensive lineman, which is absurd. It's absolutely absurd. And those
Yeah.
numbers aren't going down. I think he has, what does he have here? He has 27 total tackles on the year.
Arizona hasn't fared well against defensive ends this year.
Yep, and I haven't even, yeah, and there's your home run hit right there. Is this Arizona offensive line has given up the most sacks in the league. Kyler Murray's been sacked 20 times, and that's good for a lead in the league in sacks. I think this is a week that I think when we look at Sam Hubbard's PFF grades next week, they're going to be a lot better. He's going to have a lot more pressures. He's going to have I bet he has a sack or two at least this week. And again, with him, even if things don't fall his way, because he plays, over 80% of snaps, and because he kind of like Bosa doesn't give up on plays, his tackle floor is going to be there. So you have to start him. And this is literally one of the best matchups he'll have all season. So I think that he's going to continue to be a top, 5 defensive lineman. And if he has a good week this week, he might shoot up the rankings to, number 1.
That'd be interesting to see. I know.
Yeah, then we got, J.J. Watt. He's kind of had a little bit slow start to the year. He does play the Falcons, who have a pretty solid offensive line, but he's still J.J. Watt. Matt Ryan has looked okay this year, but the Falcons don't seem to be able to put their team in a winning situation. That seems to be a big problem for them, and because of that, I think that J.J. Watt's going to be a solid play this week. It's a divisional game, or no, it's not a divisional game, but it's still a game with 2 high-level teams, a high-level quarterback. You have a lot of talent. I think he's gonna have a good week this week. So I gave him the respect that I think he needs this week. I know some people aren't really fading him per se, but he's not getting as much love as he usually gets. So I wanted to give him a little love this week. Let's see. Anybody else on this list that's really exciting to you? I know I have Myles Garrett a little low this week. But the offensive line for the 49ers is actually really solid. And Jimmy Garoppolo has not been sacked many times this season. I don't know the exact number, but it's less than 6 for sure, which is pretty good.
Said you had Grady Jarrett on that list too.
Yeah, it's kind of weird with him. For me anyway, I've never really been a huge fan of him. But I watched a little bit of this game. Who'd they play last week? I forget who they played last week.
I'll tell you in just a second.
Anyway, it just kind of made me rethink what I've thought about him. I think he ended up with 8 or 9 tackles.
He had 7 tackles total.
7 solos, right?
No, it was just he only got credit for 1 solo, but he had 6 assists.
Well, regardless, he's playing very well. Okay, well, we got here. Jimmy Garoppolo's only been sacked twice. So Myles Garrett's got his work cut out for him. But anyway, back to Jarrett. He's got a little bit of a sack upside. I think he has 2 sacks on the season. Grady Jarrett does.
2 sacks.
2 sacks. 5.5 tackles for loss. Forced fumble. He's just been consistently producing, and I feel confident starting him. I have him in the lineup right now. I think I have him. I'm deciding between him and DeForest Buckner. But DeForest Buckner's going up against the Browns' offensive line, which is a little bit weaker. But I think either of those options are going to be great plays.
Say, Houston, they've been letting up a lot of sacks too.
Oh yeah, I think Deshaun Watson's he's one of the most sacked quarterbacks in the league right now. He's been sacked. What do we got here? Deshaun Watson has been sacked 18 times. Andy Dalton's been sacked 19, and Kyler Murray's been sacked 20. They're the 3 your sack leaders of the year. Not the way you want to be a sack leader.
No.
Let's see. Anybody else really exciting on this list? Chandler Jones, kind of a similar situation to Sam Hubbard. He's playing against the Bengals, and the Bengals offensive line. Andy Dalton's the 2nd most sacked quarterback in the league. if you watched that game on Monday night, you saw that, the Steelers defensive line was getting to Andy Dalton constantly. Tuitt was getting to him. Dupree got to him. Cameron Hayward got to him. TJ Watt got to him. Devin Bush got to him. I mean, their line was just bleeding pressure on Andy Dalton. And I think Terrell Suggs and Chandler Jones are going to have a pretty decent day. I mean, maybe even Jordan Hicks will get in there. It's going to be a good IDP matchup for sure, that game. That'll be one with a lot of guys in it. Cameron Jordan, he's at 11 and 12, Whitney Merciless. Again, these guys are just, known commodities, solid producers for your team. They've started the season fairly well. Cameron Jordan's not quite as on fire as we'd all kind of hoped, but again, he's got 2 sacks. You throw another sack in there, and suddenly it's a little bit of different conversation, So I'm still very, very happy with the production he's put out so far. Let's go ahead and get to 13 through 24. Let's finish off these rankings.
Okay.
So 13, I had Calais Campbell this week. 14, DeForest Buckner. 15, Von Miller. 16, Zadarius Smith. 17, DeMarcus Lawrence. 18, Josh Allen. 19, Kenny Clark. 20, and this guy's making his first appearance on the top 24, although he had only played 1 week. I think he came back from suspension. Robert Quinn. We'll circle back to him in a minute. We have 21, Cameron Hayward. 22, Nick Bosa, the other Bosa brother. 23, Terrell Suggs. And 24, Aaron Donald. I'm going to start with Aaron Donald real fast because I'm sure I'll probably get a little bit of flack for this, but Aaron Donald is not even a top 30 defensive tackle in the NFL right now for IDP purposes.
Crazy.
He has very, very little production. And when you put him against all of their defensive linemen or edge rushers, as they're called on the ESPN platform, he doesn't even come into the top 40. Sure, he hasn't had a big blow-up game, and I'm sure if he does have a big blow-up game, he'll jump up a little bit, but it hasn't happened yet. And things are different with the Rams this year. I don't know if people have watched, but they look a little bit off. Sure, they're 3-1. I'll give them that, but the team is not the same team that was, going toe-to-toe with the Kansas City Chiefs on Monday Night Football last season. I mean, this is a different team. The attitude seems to be not quite there. The playmaking ability seems to not quite be there. Ndamukong Suh is missing. Our co-host Jared Gray said this in the offseason. He kind of said he didn't expect Aaron Donald to have a great year, which at the time, I kind of rolled my eyes, and I think a lot of people did. But if you look at just that one variable, and Aaron Donald, the year he had last year, which was incredible, and Ndamukong Suh was there right next to him, taking pressure off of him, and he was able to get the quarterback, and he was making big plays. And you look at where Ndamukong Suh is this year, which is in Tampa Bay, and who is right now the defensive MVP front runner is Shaq Barrett, and he's playing.
People overlook that other guy. That other guy coming in and taking pressure off that.
And it's
that's how those studs emerge.
Yeah, I mean Shaq Barrett, a guy that coming into the season I hadn't heard nobody say anything about this guy at all.
Who was he until this season?
Exactly, he was backup on the Broncos, but it almost makes you wonder why he was a backup. But he is playing lights out. Your defensive MVP front runner right now. Nobody's talking about it because it's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Nobody wants to talk positively about them.
Maybe we should be talking about Suh.
Yeah, maybe we should be talking about Suh and what he brings to the table. He's not a guy that shows up on your IDP roster, scores a lot. He doesn't have these big weeks, but what he does for a defensive line and for a defense overall and the guys around him, it seems like he's the secret ingredient.
Yeah, like you should watch for guys like that. That's where you're gonna find your defensive linemen that are gonna
your studs. They'll kind of come up, and that's kind of what happened. I feel like with Whitney Merciless too. I mean, Jadeveon Clowney kind of disappeared, and all of a sudden, J.J. Watt is facing a little bit more game planning going towards him. And all of a sudden, Whitney Merciless, who's not been a bad career, but been a little quiet, is having a really, really good start to the season. He came in. He's not on this. He came in at 12, but he's a top. What we got here? He's a top. Yes, he's officially a linebacker, but he's in the top 6 at linebacker right now. Yeah, he's a top 3 linebacker right now. If that'll give you some sort of perspective on how good of a season he's having right now. But anyway, circling back around this list, I'll kind of quickly go over a few guys. DeForest Buckner back in the rankings this week after the bye week. He should be primed for a big matchup against the Browns offensive line on Monday Night Football. That is not great. Baker Mayfield's not playing his best football by any means, and I think I have DeForest at 12, and I've got Nick Bosa at 22. I think lower down my rankings, D Ford ended up coming in the late 20s, but he didn't make the top 24. But there's going to be ample opportunity for these guys to take advantage of this depleted offensive line that Baker's playing behind. And with the way Baker seems to, he's not playing his best football, mistakes are going to be made. And I think this 49ers team is going to give them a little bit of a run for their money. The 49ers right now, they're 3-0, so maybe I shouldn't be talking about them like they're the underdogs, but I think that you can count on him. Von Miller, a guy that's I haven't put into my top 24. He's been there about half the time. The Broncos defense is having a rough year. They have 0 takeaways, no turnovers at all. That is really, really, really bad.
They just lost Chubb too.
And they just lost Chubb. But, when you look at the talent on that team with Chubb, with Miller, with some of their defensive line or their, D tackles that they have, with their linebackers, bringing in Kareem Jackson. They brought in, Vic Fangio, their head coach. He's supposed to be this defensive guru, after what he did with the Bears last year. And this team didn't get its first sack until last week against the Jacksonville Jaguars and their rookie quarterback. That's a little worrisome. But, Von Miller did show a little bit last week. He ended up with 2 sacks. He had a few tackles. He lost Chubb, which is probably going to bring a little bit more pressure on him. But I have a feeling, this is, feelings. This is not quantitative analysis. This is qualitative, okay? But I got a feeling that he is going to have a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. And I feel like he's kind of turned it on. And this season for him is going to get turned around. And I think he's going to have, a good week this week. I think he's going to be playing with a little bit of a fire in him.
Maybe we're going to get the Von Miller from the Old Spice commercials or something.
Yeah, that's the Von Miller we're going to see this week. He's playing the Chargers, divisional game.
They haven't been doing so great either.
Nah, they're not doing bad, but they're not doing great. It's still
their offense has been kind of.
Yeah, but that's what happens whenever you don't have Melvin Gordon, who is a great running back and deserves to be paid lots of money.
He's back, but we'll see how many touches he gets.
They're going to crush the Broncos. But either way, the Broncos, Von Miller is very familiar with throwing Phillip Rivers to the dirt. I think he's going to do that again.
We'll see. Chubb.
You're right. We'll see. Robert Quinn. So this is a guy I want to talk about.
All right.
Robert Quinn came in last week for the Cowboys after serving his suspension, and he had a really, really good week. He had 6 total tackles. Maybe it wasn't 6 total tackles. I think this is the second week back. Let me double check this real quick. I don't know. Oh yeah, he's been back 2 weeks. Yeah. Okay. He's had 3 solo tackles each week. Not bad. Not great. Not bad. But he's had a sack every week. He had a sack week 1 against Miami, and he had 2 sacks last week. And why that's interesting is because the New Orleans offensive line is really, really good.
So they've been doing a pretty good job of protecting Teddy there.
Yeah, they're doing a great job protecting Teddy. And that's kind of why the Saints have been winning, is because they've been, controlling the ball, controlling the clock, and protecting the quarterback. And Teddy hasn't made any mistakes really, but he had 3 QB hits and he had 2 total sacks. Again, those are good numbers against the Saints offensive line, and I'm confident that he can, pull off a similar thing against the Packers. They let Aaron Donald get sacked 5 times week 1, and they haven't really faced a defensive front like DeMarcus Lawrence and Robert Quinn since then. So I think there's and this is a game, this has kind of turned into a little bit of a rivalry in my opinion. I don't think it's called that yet, but I remember that rookie season when Dak took the Packers and that first postseason game they had. So this is an interesting matchup. Both teams have good defensive players, but I think that Robert Quinn's a guy that needs to be in people's lineups. He's a known commodity. He's had a 19 sack season for the Rams a few years back, which is a feat. To get 19 sacks in the NFL is a feat. He's missed 2 games this year, and he still has more sacks than Joey Bosa right now. So, get on board before it's too late. That's all I'm saying about. That's all I'm going to say about Robert Quinn. Really, he's a good player. Get on board before it's too late. Terrell Suggs. This is also his first time in the top 24. Again, it's the matchup. Andy Dalton was sacked 8 times on Monday Night Football. Terrell Suggs has shown himself to still be a playmaker. He's playing with Chandler Jones. I think they're going to have ample opportunity to put some points up for your team.
Yep.
So.
I agree there. Anybody playing against Cincinnati?
In Arizona. Houston.
I think Baltimore was another one that was.
Baltimore's actually had a pretty good offensive line so far this year, from what I've researched. So, let's move on to the linebackers. Week 5, top 24 linebackers. Again, just want to give a little shout out. The Full-Time Fantasy Podcast Network. Guys, we got other shows on there if you're looking for some IDP or some offensive knowledge. Check them out. One of my favorite is the Fantasy Football Hustle. They pretty much just strictly talk about the utilization trends of players, which is really good information. Some really good quantitative analysis. And then they give you a little bit of qualitative perspective on it. But anyway, back to what we do over here, IDP, the cool kids. This week at number 1, I got Jordan Hicks. 2, Blake Martinez. 3, Luke Kuechly. 4, Bobby Wagner. 5, Devin Bush. 6, Jalen Smith. 7, Danny Trevathan. 8, Jamie Collins. 9, Jayon Brown. 10, Joe Schobert. 11, Corey Littleton. And 12, Leighton Vander Esch. And let's just go straight to the top. Let's talk about Jordan Hicks. This dude is literally nuclear right now. He is crushing. He's averaging, dude, listen to this. He's averaging 12 tackles a game right now. He's on pace for 196 tackles this season. Now, listen, I know that that's not sustainable by any stretch of anyone's imagination, but
I know the people listening couldn't see my face, but it was pretty.
That's what he's done this year, right now. He's playing 100% snaps. I know the big knock on him is he can't stay healthy. Well, while he's been healthy, he's been a weekly linebacker 1, and right now he leads the league in tackles. It's 48 tackles through 4 weeks. That's absurd, absolutely absurd. But when you really think about it, I mean, their defense is playing one of the highest number of defensive snaps in the league. They can't really stop people. So he's constantly getting opportunities to make tackles. And that's kind of why I've had him in my top 5 and 6 before-ish. But this week, after looking deep into the numbers, I really felt like, he might not be a sexy name like Blake Martinez or Bobby Wagner, or Leighton Vander Esch. But he right now is blowing those dudes out of the water as far as production. Blake Martinez is pretty close to him, and Luke Kuechly. But right now, he's still blowing them out of the water. And on top of that, he had two forced fumbles last week, which, shows that he, on top of just being a really good IDP floor commodity, he has some big playability. And circle back around again, we just talked about it a minute ago with some of these other guys. He gets to play the Bengals. So there's going to be ample big play opportunity ample big play opportunity for him.
Mhm.
You know, it's crazy that you can't really project things like this, but I mean, he could score a touchdown this week. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility that, you know, a strip sack happens and he's right there, he picks it up, takes it back. I mean,
Yeah.
big plays could happen this week. And on top of the fact that that is there and his
I like
incredible
it.
tackle rate right now and tackle floor, he hasn't dipped. His lowest weeks has been 11 tackles. So he's your IDP linebacker one this week, mine anyway. Blake Martinez, kind of similar story. He's on fire. He's getting a high number of tackles every week. Devin Bush, you know, this guy needs to get a little bit more love, a little bit more talked about because I don't know if you watched that Monday night game, didn't you?
I was not able to watch it.
Oh, dude.
I
Well,
mean, I tried to catch parts of it, but unfortunately, I work second shift, so I'm like if I want to catch any of it, I got to go out into the parking lot of work, and I'm watching it on my phone.
I feel you, man. That sucks. It was not a great game. I mean, it was kind of ugly, but Devin Bush and TJ Watt, well, honestly, the entire Steelers defensive front was just crushing people. Devin Bush started out the game. He had a sack within the first 4 or 5 minutes. He had 5 or 6 tackles really quick. I mean, his floor he's another one of those guys. His floor is kind of incredible. He's great in coverage. He had a pass deflection that was a really, you know, not an easy defending pass. Let's just put it that way. I mean, it looked he laid out kind of like a corner to get this ball not caught.
Nice.
He's been an absolute playmaker this year so far.
He's
For
a
the Steelers.
beast. He's an athlete, man.
He's an athlete and he's got great instincts. He's getting tackles for loss. How many tackles for loss does he have? I'm gonna double check this right here. He's got 3 tackles for loss. Not, you know, super elite, but I mean it's pretty good. I mean, Jordan Hicks has 3.5. Whitney Merciless only has 6.5, and he's kind of, you know, an edge rusher linebacker. So for him to have that many is impressive. And he didn't start the year out playing 100% of snaps. So Devin Bush, to me, I tweeted something out the other night while that game was going on. Like, he's a locked-in linebacker one, I think, the rest of the way. He's putting up a really, really good season.
I
And
remember.
this week he gets to play the Baltimore Ravens, who have been running the highest number of offensive snaps in the league. So you kind of couple the fact that he's playing a team that's going to be on the field a lot with the fact that he's a playmaker, you know, and not in, you know, in a big way. He's going to have major opportunities to produce this week. I couldn't put him any higher than 5, but he deserves to be a very highly ranked linebacker this week.
Oh, I remember at the beginning of the season we were both highly touting him. We were both in flames for him.
Yeah, I do remember that. That was a fun, good old days right there when we were in flames.
Well, I mean, he deserves it, man. He's
yeah, he came
up.
out. Yeah, he came out on that preseason game. Didn't he have like 11 tackles?
10 tackles at half.
And I think he played in the half. Yeah, it was crazy. So from then, I mean, we were sold before, but I was 100% sold then. Other notable guys here, you know, you kind of have some of your usual suspects: Joe Schobert, Corey Littleton, Jalen Smith, but Jamie Collins is. I will be honest, I hadn't been giving him
Much
the
love.
love that he really needed, but the snaps hadn't been there. I mean, that's just what it came down to. He was playing 50, 60, 70% of snaps. This last week he played 100%
insane,
snaps.
though.
I know,
I
and
mean,
that's the thing, like, the plays were coming. I mean, the numbers don't lie. I mean, he's had 3 interceptions this year, a touchdown. He's had 3.5 sacks, again, which is more than which is only 1 less than a guy like Khalil Mack, for instance, right now. He's good. You know, he's really good. He's being utilized
very
in
efficient.
so many ways by the Patriots. And now he's out there this last week against Buffalo. He played 100% of snaps. So, you know, there's no reason to shy away from him anymore. In the offseason, even I was a little hesitant to put any confidence in him because I just wasn't sure how things would shake out there. But, I mean, if he continues doing what he's doing, he's going to give Jordan Hicks, you know, some hell. Blake Martinez some hell, because maybe the tackles aren't there, but the big plays on this Patriots defense, they are definitely there. They have 10 takeaways this year. And none of them have been on forced fumbles. They've all been interceptions, but they're still getting sacks. So statistically speaking, law of averages, they should have a few takeaways on the ground too, and those are going to come. So
I'm a Patriots fan, and I talk to my friends about it, and they're like, "Oh, Tom Brady's old and stuff like that," and I'm like, "Well, I still think we're going to win a Super Bowl." And I remember correctly, Peyton Manning was pretty old back in the day, and he wasn't looking too good. And they destroyed teams with that defense,
mhm.
and that's the way this defense is looking. And Tom Brady doesn't look nearly as bad as Peyton Manning did.
No, and he looked bad, quote unquote, this last week, but he was
Hmm.
also playing the Bills defense, which
Oh, that's a
makes
mean defense.
yeah, exactly. I mean, they'll make anybody look bad, even Tom
Hmm.
Brady. So, I do want to note I want to jump back on the defensive line ranking
Hmm.
real quick. Shaq Barrett, we did tweet out. I know you retweeted it. He is probable this week, so keep an eye on that. Apparently, he has some sort of minor injury. We don't really
Hmm.
know exactly the situation, but want people to be aware of that real quick before we, get too far off from that. But back to the linebackers, I guess we'll go ahead and cycle through the 13 through 24 now.
Okay.
Um, 13, I got Deion Jones. 14,
Hmm.
Shaq Thompson. Excuse me. 15, I have Tremaine Edmunds. 16, Zack Cunningham. 17, Thomas Davis. 18, Darius Leonard, who we're hoping plays this week. He had a limited practice. I had to throw him in there, though. 19, Roquan Smith. He is a lot lower this week than he usually is.
Hmm.
And that essentially just comes down to the fact that last week he was a late scratch, like kind of just out of nowhere. We got a little blurb on Sunday morning that he was not going to play. We weren't given a reason. Matt Nagy has chosen not to give anybody any sort of indication as to why. Apparently, he was acting quote unquote erratic during the week, whatever the heck that means. Um,
Hmm.
but yesterday's story came out that should be good to go this week. Is that true? I don't know. I mean, I guess we'll find out. I believe they play in London this week as well. Let me double check that. Is that a London game? Hmm, let's see. Um, I don't know. I'm not seeing that here. I think it is though. It might not be, but that very well could be a London game. So, we'll be able to get some football early if it is. If not, my apologies for misleading you all. Um, anyway, Quan Alexander comes in at 20, and his little buddy Fred Warner at 21. They're back off their bye for the 49ers. They're playing the Browns, so that should be a good game. They should have a good opportunity there. Anthony Walker at 22. He's shown himself to be a very capable IDP linebacker. Even last
Hmm.
year, he was, capable. And this year, when Leonard's been out the last 2 weeks, he's been one of the better IDP linebackers to have. I know in real football, IRL, apparently he's not great at pass protection or pass coverage or in coverage. But I think he's shown that he can play the majority of snaps in a fashion that's going to warrant him be out there still. And we don't know about Darius Leonard; he might not play again. So Anthony Walker's in there kind of as a hedge, but also as a nod. And even if Leonard's back, I think he's going to have standalone value. Jerome Baker. Apparently, this guy, let me double check, but I think he's played the most snaps at linebacker so far this entire season. I'm going to double check that real fast for you all. But it kind of makes sense. Miami can't do anything on offense. I mean, their team's pretty much just the defense standing around getting burned constantly. Yeah, he's played 318 total snaps. He played 280 snaps, defensive snaps. So I guess he plays a little bit of special teams too. But again, those are tackle opportunities for your team. Um, he's played a ton of snaps. I mean, he's out there producing for your team. He hasn't had an elite week yet, but he hasn't had a really, really bad week either. So threw him in there. And then Patrick Onwuasor, he's a little bit of an anomaly this week. I feel like he's a linebacker too, but his floor this week is a little bit lower because he's playing Pittsburgh. And the Steelers
Hmm.
have run the lowest they're bottom 3 or 4 in offensive plays in the
Mm.
league, which just means that Patrick's not gonna be on the field quite as much as some of these other guys are. His opportunities aren't gonna be there quite as much. Statistically, this is based on the past. This game might be totally different. I don't know, but I'm just, I'm using what's given to us, what we have to look at, through history of the past 4 weeks. And, he could have a really low floor this week too. So, consider that when you put him in your lineups. I'm still playing him several places, but I'm not expecting a world beater week out of him. You got any questions about any of these guys? Davis has kind of fallen a little bit.
Shaq Thompson, you had ranked under, who was it?
He's at 14, just under Deion Jones.
Yeah, I found that a little interesting. Deion Jones hasn't been doing the greatest, has he?
No, he hasn't. And honestly, it's hard for me to even put him that high. But this is, it's kind of, again, it's a history thing. It's like he has been so good in the past, and he is good in coverage. So there is, the pass deflection here or there. And I think this is kind of going to be a prove-it week for Atlanta. And I think part of that
Houston,
part of that's going to be this defense stepping up and showing that they aren't crap, which is what they kind of look like. So that's going to start.
Shaq Thompson's been doing pretty good.
No, yeah, Shaq Thompson's been incredible this year. He had an amazing week last week. I think he might have been the linebacker one last week because of just all the kind of big plays he was kind of involved in. I think he had like an interception, a fumble recovery.
He had a sack, pass defended, and then he had 12 tackles total.
Yeah, so that right there is, even in a skimpy league that only gives like a point per tackle, that's almost 15, 16 points probably. So yeah, you can start all these guys with a level of confidence. Some of them have a little bit lower floors. Some of them have higher ceilings. Zack Cunningham is a guy that I've been struggling with because he's not playing 100% of snaps, but he is one of the best linebackers in the league right now as far as IDP is concerned. His tackle floor is pretty good. His ceiling is great. He has one of the highest, as far as ranking guys that who've made tackles at the line of scrimmage or behind it, he ranks in the top 10. And again, he's doing this playing 80 to 90% of snaps on a weekly basis, not even 100%. So he's a guy you definitely want to make sure if you have him on your team, you're squeezing into your roster. So Tremaine Edmunds, kind of last week was kind of a good prove-it week for me. He's been kind of ho-hum, nothing special, but last week he actually put up some decent numbers where I felt happy that I played him instead of kind of wondered if I should be playing him. So that was good to see.
Yep, it's been kind of waiting on him.
Yeah, waiting. And Matt Milano kind of fell off last week, so I 1 week, but it was good. It was good to see that Tremaine Edmunds, actually put up some points for you this last week that in a fashion that was respectable. So guess
I wonder if that's going to be a trend where one of them falls off and the other one produces.
Who knows? I think they're both viable options. And this is actually one of the first weeks Matt Milano hasn't made my top 24. He came in, I think, 26, 27 area. So he's still a good play. All right, let's move on to the defensive backs. So defensive backs, week 5 rankings. Number 1, I have Terrell Edmunds of the Pittsburgh Steelers. 2, Jamal Adams, back off the bye week. 3, Landon Collins. 4, Ronnie Harrison, who did nick his knee up. So we'll have to see. We'll have to check on the reports, the injury report, see if he practiced full today. 5, Buda Baker. 6, John Johnson, who plays tonight against the Seahawks. Antoine Bethea. 8, Von Bell, who has made a huge strides to put himself into this upper echelon of IDP safeties and defensive backs. He's making big plays. Their defense has really stepped up while Breeze has been out, so that's been good to see. 9, Harrison Smith, who I accidentally forgot to rank last week. My apologies. 10, Minkah Fitzpatrick, also on the Steelers defense, now off of the terrible Miami team. 11, Justin Reed, and 12, Jabril Peppers, who had a really good week last week. Had an interception he caught, took it back for a touchdown, had 6 tackles, I believe. So it was an all-around good game for him. It was good to see him kind of get right. Let's just go ahead and talk about Terrell Edmunds. He's kind of jumped up a little bit in my rankings. He's been ranked pretty consistently, but not this high. So I was looking, and he's putting up a lot of solo tackles this year. It's one thing you really like. He's tackle pace right now is incredible. He's on pace for I think 140-ish tackles, maybe more. I don't think that's necessarily going to be sustained, but considering he only had 78, 71, 78, something like that last year, that's awesome. That's exactly what you want to see from a guy from his rookie to sophomore season.
Mm-hmm.
Then we had coupled out with the fact that they're playing the Baltimore Ravens, who have had the most offense. Like I said, they're averaging the most offensive snaps in the league. The opportunity is going to be there for him to crush. So Jamal Adams, kind of, he's a top option every week. I mean, he can take one to the house. He can get sacks. He can, he's good coverage. He doesn't. Well, until a couple of weeks ago, he never came off the field, and then Adam Gase and Greg Williams, in their infinite wisdom, benched him. So that is a little work. If there's anything that's going to hold Jamal Adams back, it's not going to be the player. It's going to be the team, and it's going to be the coaches. So, but you still start him every week with confidence. He's a total beast.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if there's anybody else really interesting on this list. Minkah Fitzpatrick, he's at 10. Similar story with Terrell Edmunds. They're going to be on the field a lot this week against capable Baltimore team that moves the ball. So I'm firing him up with confidence everywhere I have him.
Yep.
I think most people should. The Saints play the Buccaneers this week, so I think Von Bell is going to continue his hot streak. Tampa Bay was moving the ball last week against the Rams, and even though I said the Saints defense is much improved, I still think that it's a divisional game. Tampa's going to move the ball.
They're either going to move it or turn it over.
Exactly, and either way, Von Bell's going to be out there, and he's going to be involved in some way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
I expect another good week out of him, honestly. I think this might be the week that Teddy cracks, too. I've never been a big Teddy Bridgewater fan. I know a lot of people like him. Not that I don't like him. I'm not saying I don't like him. I think he's gotten a little bit, I don't know. He's been playing – he got a little handicap in the league, let's put it that way. People seem to just kind of give him a pass for some reason.
He's more about – I feel like he's just a game manager.
He's a game manager. He's a nice guy. You can't really knock him for that. But it's like when it comes to football, he doesn't play the style of football that I like.
He's not going to go out there and wow you.
Exactly. I love Patrick Mahomes. It is such a blessing, an honor, a privilege to be able to turn on a Chiefs game every week and know that it's going to be incredible. Like, it's one of the best feelings in the world. I feel bad for people who are fans of teams like the Jets or Miami. I mean, I guess your wins feel a little bit more intense because they don't come all the time. But I feels the intensity of a Patrick Mahomes 75-yard touchdown every week is what a wonderful feeling. So I'm happy to be over here in Chiefs Kingdom. Justin Reed.
I like being a Pats fan.
Okay, there it is. Mm-hmm. Bringing up your rings over here.
It's okay.
Hey, it's all right. We're here to dethrone you. It's year 100. The Chiefs are coming for all that, baby.
We're on our stairway to 7.
Oh, baby. Year 100. Patrick Mahomes. He's going to crush the Patriots in that championship game. Go on, win the Super Bowl.
Okay.
It's going to be wonderful. I can't wait. But that's neither here nor there for now.
It's been stymied by our defense.
Oh, please. Don't even.
Confused.
Defense confused. Stop. Just stop. All right. I guess we'll go through 13 through 24 real quick here. Jordan Poyer comes in at 13. He was also left off my list last week due to a clerical error. I apologize again.
Damn that secretary.
I know. I had to fire my intern. So if anyone out there wants to intern for me, hit me up on Twitter. Jesse Bates, Gerard Wilson, Sean Williams. This dude's making his first appearance on the list. It's Kari Willis. He's going to be playing strong safety in place of Clayton Gathers on the Indianapolis Colts. And last week when the Chiefs played the Lions, both of their safeties had huge weeks. So I think
Mm-hmm.
Kari Willis might be a sneaky play. You might be able to find him on your waivers still this week. He might be a sneaky play and get you some pretty high level points against the Chiefs this week. We got Ed Reed at 18, Monte Nicholson at 19, Eric Weddle's coming in at 20. He played 100% of snaps last week for the first time for the Rams. They play tonight against the Seahawks divisional game. And I know Taylor Rapp hurt his ankle. I saw he was doubtful. He's probably going to be out since it was a short week. So I expect Eric Weddle to continue to see a lot of work. This one I had a little bit of struggle putting in was Eddie Jackson. I don't necessarily love Eddie Jackson. He's such a kind of an oddity for safety. He doesn't get a lot of tackles. He only had 2 double-digit tackle games his whole career, but he's a big play machine. Last year he had 6 interceptions, 3 touchdowns. I think he recovered a fumble a week or two ago. I mean, he can have a 10 tackle game. He's had a 10 tackle game this year already. But just his overall consistency is just a little bit, it leaves something to be desired, especially when you compare it to some of these other guys who are just kind of always in, that 7-8 tackle range. And that's the other thing too. It's like Eddie Jackson doesn't get double-digit tackles. I mean, some of these games are 2, 3, 4 tackles, and I mean, nothing. It's not. We're not talking 7, 8, 9. I mean, so he's kind of he's a risky play. Let's put it that way. He does play the Raiders, so to me, there is a little bit of upside there with Derek Carr under duress probably this entire game. Eddie might get his first interception of the year. So I had to put him in the rankings. He's one I'm not super duper duper confident in necessarily, but I think that you can get away with playing him and you might luck out there. Trey Boston, 22. The Carolina Panthers, Clinton Dix, 23. And Justin Simmons rounds out 24. These last 3 guys, it just really comes down to the snap counts. Clinton Dix has had a pretty good start to the season, but I know a lot of that came in that one game where he had like 2 interceptions, something like that. Let me double check that for sure. He's doing really well for Chicago though. And playing next to Eddie Jackson is nice. Yeah, he had 2 interceptions against Washington. One of them he took back for a touchdown. So he has a little bit better of a tackle floor than Eddie Jackson does. He hasn't had a double-digit tackle game yet, but he's averaging around 6 tackles a game, so that's not bad. And again, playing the Raiders, Derek Carr, against this Chicago defensive front, I think that there will be opportunities, there will be interceptions in this game. So hopefully they do go into the laps of Eddie Jackson and Clinton Dix, so I can be validated in ranking them so high. Yeah, like I said, the only guys on this list that are kind of, these are kind of your usual suspects. Kari Willis is going to be your sleeper play, your glory play, your sneaky play. Monte Nicholson's a guy that I know is on a lot of waivers. I've picked him up in a couple of leagues where I didn't have some of these other guys that were a little bit better on my team. Jared Wilson, another guy I know that's on some waivers out there, which is kind of crazy to me. I mean, these guys are both top 25 safeties. They're on teams that their defenses are on the field a lot. It's kind of incredible to me that people haven't kind of gone out there and got them.
Yeah, I'm about to add Monte Nicholson in the league right now. He's on waiver.
Yeah. And that's prudent. It's a prudent thing to do. I mean, these guys are, like I said, they play a lot of snaps and they're consistent. And that's what you want. You want a level of consistency on your team. You don't have to have it at DB. You can have it at linebacker, but you want some consistent guys, and then you want some of your Eddie Jackson types, your Shaq Barrett, your Whitney Merciless types at linebacker, if that's where you're able to play them in that league, if you can't put them into a defensive line. You want a good mix. You don't want a team that's just all floor or all upside. So they are definitely, great floor plays, and I do think they have upside, and they, that's on the table. So but that's kind of runs down the top, 24 at the three main positions we cover on the IDP Hour. Um, I know this game tonight, there was no Seahawks on here today on the defensive backs. McDougald's playing a little bit deeper down the field this year. He's not getting quite as many tackles. I didn't put Jadeveon Clowney in the defensive line rankings because he's cycling in and out. And last week he had a touchdown. I understand that, but he did almost nothing besides that, and that happened in like the first 5 minutes of that game. So I just don't trust him yet. I don't know if I trust Pete Carroll at all, honestly. I actually sat Chris Carson in a league because after Pete Carroll made a point to come out and tell the media, we believe in Chris Carson. I was like, nope, I don't buy that.
Lies.
Yeah, I put him on my bench. Turned out I was wrong, but I mean, past experiences with Pete Carroll, I think I made a prudent decision. I lost that match, but even if I would have played Carson, I would have lost by like 10 or 15 points because Tyler Boyd was literally a useless bag of potatoes out there last week. But anyway, that's neither here nor there because this is IDP. This is the defensive part of fantasy football. This is where the degenerates come. This is where, we separate the men from the boys over here. So we're happy to be here providing content for everybody. Thursday night games tonight. Make sure your lineups are set accordingly. We do a live cast. That'll be on Sunday morning. Again, our buddy Jared won't be here. He won't be here for the live cast either. It might be a week or two before he's back again. He had a family emergency. So, like I said at the top of the show, thoughts and prayers are with him. We have another show we do on Mondays as well. That's the IDP 411. That's on Expand the Box Scores podcast network. If you guys want to check that out, a little different vibe in here, a little different feel. We kind of go over what the players did the previous day, Sunday. That's released on Monday. And here we're kind of looking towards the future week, the week coming up. So if you guys want a little more IDP content from us, give that a listen. Follow us on Twitter. I'm Jordan Rains at 50 Shades of Drunk. Y'all can follow Steve. He is at the Dynasty Chef. And we're happy to be here putting this stuff out for you guys. And I guess I'll go ahead and close the show out. That's, been the IDP Hour, and we will see you next week. Go win some matchups. Go win some championships.
Have a good day, Jordan.
All right. Yeah, definitely will. Take her easy, Steve.